Okay, lookers. Jenna sat in the back row like she used to in high school and eyeballed her, Luann, the original WRNL good looker, up front sitting straight as a board with her glossy, flowy mahogany hair down to her waist. Luann, all swishes and smiles, snug in a pink blazer, turning to grin encouragingly at the girls behind her. Born to be pleasant Luann, with no history of schizophrenia or alcoholism in her family. This was the kind of girl guys liked. Beautiful, but not too intense. Jenna must have been chosen for a contrast. Jenna's hair swelled in loose curls, and her lips took up too much room on her face, her jawbone so steep it cast black shadows on her skinny neck, yet everyone said she was gorgeous. The other good lookers were all blondes, with slow blinking Bambi eyes and teeny noses planted in the center of Valentine faces. Luann and Jenna were the only brunettes, which was probably why they got paired up. Big D sat on a metal desk up front and talked at them in his radio voice. The job was to ride around town in the WRNL winter wagon and give away free money. It was Big D's idea to hire luscious young girls and call them good lookers. They were to search with cars for men in them, as the good looker concept did not seem to apply to women. Then pick a car and radio in a description and the license plate number, which Big D would broadcast between oldies. Big D paused to ask if anyone knew how to work a CB. Only Jenna raised her hand, but it was the other's ignorance that delighted him. He continued, if the lucky driver was listening to WRNL, he'd know to pull over and get a free $50. The girls were to jump enthusiastically out of the winter wagon and run in their high heels to the lucky car. Big D demonstrated how they were to run, holding their arms out from their sides like ladies, not balling up their fists and jogging like guys. Big D did not look like his radio voice. He was old and had that wormy kind of fat on him, with splotches on his face that went all the way up over the top of his cue ball head. When one of the blondes asked a question, Big D gripped his chest like her beauty was giving him a heart attack and pretended to faint. Then he hopped up and yelled, ask anyone, girls. They'll tell you I am one crazy dude. He never did answer the question. Jenna would have liked to get a long piece of cord like a clothesline and twist it around Big D's neck and pull it until his fat spotted head popped off. Probably it wouldn't pop so much as squish off and splutter down his chest with veins and other stringy stuff trailing down the nubby fabric of his shirt. At the end of orientation, Big D left the room walking backwards, bowing and wiping pretend tears from his eyes. A secretary with lumpy legs brought in their schedules. No one got to work full time. Big D had hired too many girls. The pay would be dirt. Staying at the Pizza Hut would have been better. But working here, Jenna would get to wear nice clothes and hear her name on the radio and feel more real. Luann slipped into the chair beside hers and murmured, listen, I say we walk to the lucky winter car and hold our arms however we like. Jenna squinted her face in a fake smile. Luann was one of those girls who's assertive on the sly. Jenna would have liked to pluck the big pen out of Luann's hand and jab it into her eye socket and watch the blood gush out of her dumb, surprised face. Luann leaned closer, peering at Jenna's copy of the schedule, even though she had one of her own, and Jenna got a close-up of Luann's faultless bronze Greek-looking profile. Luke would have called her stunning. Jenna tilted away from the flawless presence. Stunning, he would have said, not because he was a flirt, but because he always found a compliment for people. His image flickered in her mind, smiling and nodding, hair flopping forward, perched on his car hood with his guitar, fingers stretched along the fret. Happy-go-lucky Luke, a guy who liked everyone and everything. I'm sorry, his voice said again in her head, the breakup on instant replay, sometimes whispering, sometimes loud. I have to move on. You're beautiful, but too intense. Even someone who liked everything couldn't like her. The first day out in the winter wagon, Luann drove. It was 50s Friday, which meant every third song Big D played was extra stupid. The winter wagon was practically new, a 77 Chevy with an AM/FM radio, but the radio had to stay on WRNL all the time, and Big D was always on, telling dumb blonde jokes, selling discount furniture. WRNL, sang a chorus of black-sounding white women, followed by the babbling Big D, your oldies station in Newport News, Virginia. They drove. Luann began singing along with the radio. Oh, baby, baby, it's a wild world. Jenna had never heard worse singing. Her eyes landed on Luann's hands gripping the wheel responsibly at 10 and 2, her nails sensibly short and coral. Jenna and Luann had not been actual friends in high school, but Jenna knew all about her. Luann lived in Riverside, in a huge brick colonial with a second garage for her dad's boat. Jenna lived across Warwick Boulevard behind the Burger King, where the homes were clumped up together like little green Monopoly houses. Luann had been an honor student, president of the Kiettes. Her older brother was one of the guys killed in the car crash on graduation night, but the brave Luann had come through it, knew how to do that, went around talking to adults, went to family counseling with her parents, then went off to college and came back talking smart with a boyfriend in pre-law. We have to find someone, Luann said, flashing a smile, her bangs like a woodblock on her forehead. How about him? They approached a Cadillac. No, Luann answered herself, already rich. She only wanted to give money to appreciative poor people. Him? No. Jenna watched the ruffly yellow sleeve flap over Luann's shoulder and was reminded that now she had to go buy fluffy dresses like Luann's. Big D had not liked the black miniskirt and sequined high heels she had on today. His eyes went up and down her front and his throat gurgled, but then he frowned, declaring she was yummy enough for an afternoon snack, but they were after a more innocent look, feminine and cheerful like Luann's. Luann was Big D's favorite. She'd stood next to him after the meeting and spoke softly in his ear, which caused him to cock his head like a dog and pant. Luann giggled, apparently taking this as flattery, and now Jenna had to be more like her, a proper little virgin type. Not a real virgin, of course, but the type who only sleeps with a long-term boyfriend instead of a series of 3-week boyfriends, though Luke had stayed with her for 6 months. Time to move on, his cool voice cracked in her head. Big-hearted Luke, such an eager listener, nodding and spurting out sympathetic noises that encouraged Jenna to talk until she told him the whole entire story of Joe Mackenzie, which she had never told anyone. It's okay, Luke kept saying, stroking her hair. Go ahead and cry. It's okay. But it wasn't okay. He'd gotten tired of her. Who wouldn't? Luann began calling in descriptions of cars. Jenna had to show her how to use the CB and tell her the makes and models. All Luann could figure out was what color they were. It took a while to find a fool listening to WRNL, but they got one, a guy in an ancient Chrysler. Jenna made Luann award the prize money, not wanting the bother of getting out of the van and walking in the weeds by the roadside. Luann came flouncing back, all pink with excitement. Their first lucky winner was a fireman whose wife just had a baby. God. All right, I will stop here and hopefully you'll read the rest in the journal. Thank you very much.